destination for many families. The weather is warm, the beaches are near, and it's a good escape from work and school for many people. SeaWorld is obviously on the itinerary for many people when they go south or to different countries, and it's somewhere cool to bring the family. However, most families who put SeaWorld on their itinerary are not aware of what happens at SeaWorld. Throughout my speech today, I will inform you all about who currently supports SeaWorld, the effects captivity has on the animals there, the stories of past captive orcas, people who are critics of SeaWorld, and lastly, the environment that is best fitting for orcas. I've credited multiple sources throughout my speech, and I will be crediting them because of the years of dedication they have taken to research and find good information about SeaWorld and the animals who live there. First, I'll talk about who supports SeaWorld. SeaWorld is currently obviously supported by multiple families. In 2021, it is reported that they had nearly 20 million visitors. SeaWorld is the ideal best vacation destination, as I stated previously, and this is why SeaWorld is such a large attraction. Since multiple films have been filmed and published about the effects of captivity on the animals, their numbers have been tanking recently. However, SeaWorld is trying to maintain its image and becoming creative with their advertisements. The films have made damage in their numbers, and they need to counteract how they have lost their numbers. Quote, "The new ads specifically take aim at the repeated allegations made by the company's biggest critic, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which says it doubts the new advertising will bring people back to the parks," end quote. So their biggest critic is saying they won't get their numbers back, but 58% of people in the world have voted that they think that SeaWorld will be able to gain their attention again. Now we're going to talk about the animals at SeaWorld. First, we'll talk about too small of tanks. On average, orcas weigh 8 to 16,000 pounds and are around 30 feet long. Orcas are one of the fastest animals and the largest animals in the ocean. They swim nearly 100 miles per day. Stated in the article, a summary of the effects of captivity on orcas, it is stated that, quote, "The largest tank at any of SeaWorld's facilities holds approximately 0.0001% of the minimum volume of water that an orca travels daily in nature. Talikum, one of the orcas, would have to swim the circumference of that tank more than 1,900 times in a single day to approximate the distance he would travel in nature where he's supposed to be," end quote. The space that is provided for orcas is inadequate for their body size, and it is not at all comparable to what their life would be like in the wild. Next, we're going to combine 2 and 3 together. Their social environment's lacking and their shorter lifespans. Just as humans, orcas are very social creatures. They thrive best in a social environment and in large gatherings. When they are isolated in their tanks, they begin to become emotionally unstable and retaliate in ways that are not normal for their behaviors. Well, research has shown that social stability, such as changes in group dynamics, competition for resources, and unstable dominance hierarchies, is a major stressor that is believed to have even caused death of several captive dolphins, end quote. Then, fourth, we'll talk about dental issues in orcas and when they are captive. Because of the emotional instability of the orcas, when they are in captivity, they show more aggression towards each other and humans. Similar to humans, they are showing depression signs and their lifespans are shortened. Because of their isolation, they want to be together, and this is where the emotional stability comes into play as well. They often bite on their tanks and the bars that keep them separated from each other. This causes severe dental issues for all of the animals. Quote, "Understimulated and bored animals chew metal bars that separate the tanks and mouth concrete pool corners, like the main stage at SeaWorld of Florida," end quote. Quote, "When the orca's teeth break, it exposes the pulp which is left untreated. It will decay and form a cavity and can lead to inflammation and eventually a focus for systematic infection. Since many of the orcas who sustain broken teeth are relatively young and the roots of their teeth have not matured yet, a root canal is now not possible," end quote. So many of the orcas who are captive are young, and then with these dental issues happening when they're young, it leads to poor development of their teeth, and they eat fish, so they're not able to maintain a stable diet, and so on. Now we'll talk about not enough food, which also comes from that. Many people, when they travel to SeaWorld, wonder how and why the animals perform so well for the trainers. It's because they're underfed during the day, and then when they're performing at shows, they're given food, and so they'll perform better for their treats, and it is more of like a basis of the show, and so they're not getting well nourished during the day until the show. Last, we'll talk about their emotional reactions. As stated previously, when orcas have a social environment, they are more willing to have outrageous reactions. Quote, "The confined space, repeated scheduled performances, and related training completely compromise his autonomy. This deprivation is physically and psychologically harmful to orcas, and, as discussed below, causes them to display indicators of stress and trauma, which notably includes aggression, self-injury, and increased mortality." End quote. When the animals are in captivity, they are not getting enough attention, not enough exercise, and they are more likely to react in emotional ways and aggressive ways. Families walking into SeaWorld feel like superheroes. They feel ready for the day. They've packed all their snacks, all of their sunscreen, and they're ready for all of the events that take place at SeaWorld. As you can see here, this family is ready to take on SeaWorld. Behind all of these faces is something that they don't even know yet. Today, these faces are all going to know the reality of SeaWorld. At SeaWorld, the tricks and the shows are something that might fool the crowd into thinking that the reality of SeaWorld isn't true. Orcas are animals who particularly thrive in social environments. They do best when they're in large and social gatherings. Orcas are animals who are very large and very heavy, and typically their tanks at SeaWorld are not large enough for their body size. Because of orcas' want to be in a social environment, they often find themselves biting on the cages that keep them trapped in SeaWorld, and they are revealing problems with their teeth because of this. Okay, many of you know the story of Talikum. He is the orca who's famous for killing his trainer. Quote, "In short, Talikum is deprived of the stable, nurturing social family and pod structure that was so central in his life in the wild. The artificial groupings at marine facilities are, according to an expert, a tremendous violation of the basic premise of the pod and result in constant stress." End quote. The lack of social environment is given to be a reason that Talikum performed with his reactions of aggression in the public. Kayla is the second orca I'll talk about, and she, like many other captive orcas, was taken from her mom at 11 months old. This forms bad behaviors, and when they are in the captivity, they're more likely to avoid social structures instead of going towards them like they are in the wild. And so when they're born in captivity and raised in captivity, then they avoid social structures that are more of their breed and like how they're supposed to be. Kyoko is the star of the movie Free Willy, which many of you have probably watched. He is known for being one of the sickest orcas in the wild, and he was taken into captivity and fed and regained his strength and put on nearly 1,000 pounds in Oregon. And when he was released back into the wild, he thrived even more than he did in captivity and was able to maintain his weight on his own and be a wild orca once again. Now I'll talk about a few of the critics who critic SeaWorld. This is a former orca trainer who worked at SeaWorld. His name is John Hargrove. He writes a lot of articles and public speaks talking to people about what's bad about SeaWorld, his experiences there, and after he left, he realized how terrible it was. And so he talks about why he left and why it was so hard for him to leave, but why it was better for him and for the animals. This is a film, Blackfish, which many of you have probably seen or heard of. It tells a story specifically on Tilikum. Quote, released in 2013, Blackfish focuses on Tilikum, an orca kept in captivity at the marine park SeaWorld in the USA. Built upon interviews of former marine mammal trainers, the documentary highlights various conservation and animal welfare issues surrounding the use of orcas in marine parks such as SeaWorld, as well as the dangers trainers face, seeing that Tilikum killed his trainer in 2010, end quote. Now we'll watch a short clip of this video.
Senior trainer here at Shamu Stadium.
She captured what it means to be a SeaWorld trainer, that it made me realize what happened to her really could have happened to anyone.
I've been expecting somebody to be killed by Tilikum.
We weren't told much about it, other than it was trainer error.
It didn't just happen. It's not a singular event. You have to go back to understand this.
These people herded them in, and they could just pick out the young ones.
This is the worst thing that I've ever done.
Senior trainer here at Shamu.
This is my work cited, and ultimately, orcas and all other sea animals are designed for the wild, socially, emotionally, and mentally. They are creatures who deserve to live and be free in the wild. Throughout my speech, I have informed you all on who currently supports SeaWorld, the effects captivity has on orcas and other animals, stories of past captive orcas, the critics of SeaWorld, and lastly, the environment that is best fitting for orcas. I hope through my speech you were able to take something away and soon find yourself informing and encouraging others to vacation somewhere other than SeaWorld. Thank you for listening to my speech.